The instant I sat at the air conditioning and lobby music kicked back on, I had entirely forgotten about them. It was a little strange. Kilday looked up and around, then back at me. "All right, girl, rad," he said, almost beaming. "I should get back to my office. I have payroll and receipts to run," I said, backing away, still holding eye contact with him. He happily held up his Bloody Mary. "Don't let me keep ya. I'm doing just fine here." "Have a good night, Mr. Kilday." I couldn't stop myself from grinning as I turned and walked away. But had I known what would happen, I know now, not only would I have turned him down, but I would have called security, the police, hell, even the church, and told them to get me as far away from that hotel as possible. I finally left work in the early morning. While it was still dark, the roads were quiet on the far way home at first, but strange things began to happen as I neared closer to my apartment complex. I saw a red-colored, long-fingered hand wrapped around the edge of a roadside construction sign. Then I saw what looked like a pair of long manual legs that were the same raw muscle color standing beneath another sign. I looked back in my side mirror at when the sign was and spotted what looked like two illuminated eyes in the darkness. They glowed like a cat's, but were red-orange in color. I began to shiver despite the car's climate control being set at 70 degrees. I told myself that I was only a few miles from home and that it was just the stress and strangeness of my workday getting to me. Though those thoughts were interrupted by a sudden awful stench coming from through the vent. The air in my car reeked of sweat, sulfur, and animal feces. I grabbed and opened the windows, which only made the stench worse. Skunks were rare around where I lived, but I knew even running over one of them couldn't precede a sickening odor like this. The stench so preoccupied me that I failed to notice a traffic light turn red. I slammed the brakes and stopped inches away from the bumper of a black SUV in front of me. I knew I wasn't paying close attention to the road, but I swore the light had gone straight from green to red. I tapped my nails on the steering wheel and dashboard, waiting for the lights to change back to green, but it didn't. My car and the SUV just sat there far longer than the red light would normally keep us. Then I noticed something. A shape was drawn in the layer of dust on the SUV's near window. I blinked and rubbed my eyes. It was the same symbol I made with the rose petals on Mr. Kilday's suite. Two console rings around 3 arches and crossed over a pair of horizontal lines and 6 triangles. My hands locked up around the steering wheel. There was no way seeing that shape again now was a coincidence. Still, my rational side told me the SUV must have belonged to someone at work. Maybe Cameron, the bellman, or the housekeeper who went to the suit, or someone else who got Jules' email. The light, whatever, turned green, and the black SUV never moved. I slowly backed up and went around the SUV and through the interaction while it stayed red. I was too afraid to beep the horn. I let myself into my apartment and didn't even take off my makeup before plopping down onto my bed. I went right to sleep. Then sometime later, I'm not sure how long, my eyes snapped open. I heard scratching on the floor. I sat up. It was dark. Across the bedroom sat a large Rottweiler. I was startled and turned on the bedside lamp. Moose? I asked, confused. I don't own a dog, but one of my neighbors in the building, my friend Tony, had a standoffish old Rottweiler named Moose. Tony was more of a friend of convenience than general like, but we trusted each other, and I had dog sat for her in the past. I thought maybe I'd forgotten to lock the door. Then it came in and she had to leave unexpectedly for some reason and simply put Moose in my apartment. Then she realized it was open. I wouldn't have just put it past her. I said Moose's name again, but the old dog just sat there staring at me. It didn't matter. Moose and I had a whole understanding. He wouldn't do anything to hurt me. I laid back down and turned off the light. But in the corner of my eye, Moose changed. No longer a dog, but a towering black, tall silhouette again. I leaped out of bed and switched the light on, but the light bulb flashed and burned out. Moose was back again, and the tall silhouette was gone. I carefully got back into bed and inched forward and edged it. Is that you, Moose? I said, and still feeling scared, but also a bit silly, Moose yawned and spoke. Okay, boy, I said, laying back down. But it happened again. In the corner of my eye, I saw a black silhouette in the rough shape of a man who unnaturally tall limbs and a head that seemed to blend into the shadows on the ceiling. But when I looked straight at it, it was Moose. Moose started to walk, coming closer to the bed until he disappeared behind the edge of it. Now I was terrified. I didn't want to open my eyes. I wanted to will myself to sleep and hope I forgot the whole thing. When I woke up, it worked for a few moments, but then I felt cold. I opened my eyes and saw the bedsheets had been pulled off of me, and now showed the shape of a large dog sitting on the foot of my bed. Now I tried to move, but I couldn't. I'd never experienced sleep paralysis before, but I knew this wasn't it. I could only move my eyes. I closed them, and once they reopened, the shape under the sheets was that the extremely tall figure launched over me with its shoulders against the ceiling. I looked down and saw its bare feet beneath the sheets. They were the same, deep red, raw muscle color, and had gap holes where it looked like toes had been ripped off. I tried to scream but couldn't. The shape under the sheet bent over closer and closer until the sheet collapsed into me, smothering me. I couldn't move again, and I thrusted and kicked under the bedsheet. I rolled from the bed into the floor and scrambled out from underneath. The light came back on. The tall silhouette and Moose were nowhere in sight. I checked the front door, and it was locked. I looked at my phone and saw I had only a few hours until I needed to be back at work. I lay down on the couch. After that, I would see Mr. Kilday at the hotel and get some answers. At least, I hoped I would.